If you've ever played the greatest Pokemon game of all time, Pokemon Colosseum, you will of course remember the iconic opening scene where Skarmory flies out over the desert. This video is not about that. It is about Skarmory, the premier spiking machine in Advanced OU. It's so premier at it that it has firmly landed within the boundaries of A rank. It is one of the tier's most defining Pokemon. Its influence is just colossal. It and its spikes shape the Pokemon, their sets, and the teams within the metagame more than anything short of Tyranitar and its sand. Every Pokemon in OU has its viability seriously affected by whether or not it can deal with Scarm and or its spikes. And if it can't, then it's going to need its teammates to seriously pick up the slack, because the same idea goes for teams. If your team can't handle Skarmory, it is a bad team. End of. I mean, a lot of teams go, well, I'm kind of weak to Gyarados, but A, it's rare, B, I can probably play around it. Does not exist with Skarmory. It is unforgiving if you are not ready for it. And you should never not be ready for it, because it is a common, really powerful threat, even though it's a defensive Pokemon. As you may have guessed, it is never seen without its spikes. It's what allows it to generate some sort of offense off a free turn, because it's not a Blissey, it's not an immovable wall that's going to heal off any damage, which isn't going to be a lot in the first place, but any damage that you hit it with, it's not just going to 50% that stuff right off. But it's the spikes that are scary, because they put a timer on your ability to deal with not just Skarmory, but the rest of the team. And it gets a lot of free turns to lay those spikes down, because it doesn't just have great defense, it's got amazing defensive typing that resists so much. Steel is amazing on its own, but you throw in that flying typing to give it the ground immunity, the earthquake immunity, and the immunity to Dugtrio's Arena Trap, and even throw in a fighting neutrality, and it's just amazing. The synergy with Tyranitar is impeccable. Tyranitar eats fire moves, Skarmory eats ground and bug, and together they dish out a lot of permanent residual damage. Permanent unless dealt with, of course, but dealing with it is going out of your way. So Sandstorm and Spikes are common battle conditions you must be prepared for. And Skarmory also, once it has gotten those 3 spikes, can still make you miserable, because it can force you to switch even more. Because unlike the other 2 spikers, Fortress and Cloister, it has Whirlwind. Or Roar if you're running Drill Peck, but we'll just assume Whirlwind for now. It does reveal that you will not be running Drill Peck, but we'll get into that, don't worry. So Whirlwind or Roar, just to keep your options open. Specifics later. Anyway, so you can't rely on spikes to do all the work for you, because a lot of Pokemon hover above them. This isn't Stealth Rock that hits literally everything. Even the quad resistances for 3%, that's still 3%. And Pokemon games have been won on a lot less. So Spikes does have its immunities, and they're good Pokemon that are immune to it. I mean, look at it. Gengar, Zapdos, Skarmory itself, of course, Salamence, Claydol mostly exists to get rid of Spikes, but it's still Claydol, Aerodactyl, Moltres, Flygon, Gyarados. Those are some scary Pokemon. Of course, literally everything else is hit by Spikes. And it's not type dependent. It's going to hit everything for 12, then not too much. The second layer sucks, but we'll get into that later. Or then up to 25%. That's a ton, especially with Sand canceling out leftovers on a lot of guys. So, Skarmory is... I mean, it has a Pokemon whose entire existence is dedicated to the elimination of it. Magneton, if Skarmory didn't exist, Magneton would not in OU either. Skarmory is a huge, huge deal. So, what does it do? It gets in on Pokemon like Metagross, Swampert, other Scarm, a lot of Blissey, some Celebi, a lot of Suicune. Snorlax is a big one after Dugtrio KO. Kind of Aerodactyl, sometimes Heracross, but that's sketchy. Milotic, Flygon. Those are a lot of targets, and it starts spiking and whirlwinding. It's not supposed to be an immovable wall that is unkillable. it's supposed to put the pressure on you while still switching into dangerous Pokemon. Like switching into Metagross, yes please. So the standard set is this old bugger. Especially defensive because its defense is already high enough to take what you need to take for the most part. I'm not saying it's going to shrug off choice banded focus punches, but it is going to generally take those meteor matches and +1 rock slides from Salamence, let's say, decently enough, while boosting its meager special defense makes it a lot harder to KO. Like water moves from Swampert, Suicune, and Milotic, or even like a super effective HP Fire from a Celebi, or like a Flamethrower from Blissey, it takes a lot better. And a lot of Pokemon go mixed, like Tyranitar. Here's Skarmory shaping the metagame again, shaping moveset choices. Tyranitar without Fire Blast is not as immediately scary to Skarmory. That's why Swampert goes with Hydro Pump, or one reason. It's got to put some sort of pressure on Skarmory. Salamence runs the mix set primarily so it can get through Skarmory without needing Magneton. So things like that. Now, I should mention Skarmory is not an immovable physical wall on its own, especially because with the flying typing, it also becomes neutral to rock. And so it also needs on its team a rock check. Usually it's Swampert because it also resists electric and fire and good synergy and all that good stuff. And spikes help wear down things like Celebi and opposing waters that switch into Swampert. So it becomes... You can see the kind of chokehold that these two have on opposing teams, especially in Sand, when they switch in on each other's weaknesses and Skarmory gets the spikes down. So even if you're not really doing that much damage, you're still pressuring the other guy a lot more, just by virtue of having the spikes down. That's why they're such a big deal. So, yes. The rocks, sorry. So your Skarmory can take a couple, but it shouldn't be your only or even primary counter to Dragon Dance or Choice Band Tyranitar, and especially Aerodactyl in the late game. That's a big reason why Swampert is there for the real rock check. Of course, you might think, well, what if they, go mixed? I mean, Arrow won't, but T-Tar can run Fire Blast and Rock Slide and HP Grass and run a very decent mix set. That's correct, it can, and often does. And there's its moveset choice, again, being dictated by having to break through Scarm Pert. Of course, when it does run that set, it's also not running Dragon Dance, it's not running Earthquake, it's not running Ice Beam, or it has to make a choice. So Skarmory makes Pokemon run concessions in order to deal with it. So, I mean, Blissey doesn't want to run Fire Blast. I mean, it doesn't help it deal with the special attackers that it's trying to deal with, but it does because it doesn't want to be permanent Skarmory bait. Because, I mean, you can deal with layers if you're not switching that much and you're making the most out of every turn you're in. So as long as you really are beating down Skarmory from every direction, and I mean every direction, then you should be okay. The problem is, once the spikes go up and it keeps getting in to keep whirlwinding you around, or just phasing you around if it's roar. So if I say whirlwind, I mean phase. But yeah, that's why you gotta hit it from every angle. You gotta hit that Hydro Pump and that Fire Blast stack, and another move it runs is Protect, very commonly. It's like, well, I don't have real recovery, so I'm going to fake it. Like with Swampert, this makes it so much more annoying because extra recovery, just barely out of range, especially with those mid-range attacks, the HP Fire Metagross, the Fire Blast T-Tar, the Fire Blast Snorlax, the DD'd Rock Slide from Salamence, how much it all adds up, and Protect messes with that. The Hydros from Swampert, especially on low PP moves like Hydro Pump and Fire Blast. And it lives to phase and spike another day. So that's another reason you gotta be careful. You can't just say, well, I'm gonna hit it a few times. It's not quite that simple. So, and the last move traditionally is Toxic because it gives it more damage because, well, Swampert and Blissey and Milotic and Suicune and Celebi can just kind of stay in on it and wait for it to phase it out. So you're really safely damaging it. But once you introduce Toxic into the equation, then it becomes a lot more obnoxious. And it also prevents things like Zapdos from switching in for free, because if you have rest, you're going to have to rest. And if you don't have rest, then you're on a timer and you're getting Toxic Protect stalled, and that is disgusting. So much of the metagame revolves around being able to deal with not just spikes, but also Skarmory's Toxic Protect shenanigans. And we'll get into those. So, this is the standard Scarm. Of course, it can drop... It's got some changes it can make. First of all, you might think, well, I want to stop recovery and I want to stop other spikes, and that's cool, so you just run Taunt and various speed creep. I won't even bother telling you how much because it's different for everyone. I mean, you could feasibly say it's anywhere from like here to like here-ish to like here, and then you can keep going and going and going and going until you're, you know, faster than Magneton, and that's a whole separate thing. But, and of course you're chipping into your special defense, which makes you so unkillable. But if you're not running Protect, because you're generally not going to see Taunt Protect, you're going to see Taunt Toxic for the most part, then it's not as necessary to run absolute max special defense, because you're not squeezing every bit of health out of those Milotic Surfs or whatever it might be. With Protect, that's what makes Scarm so unkillable, so you can afford to get that speed jump on Skarmory. And even things like Refresh Claydol, but we'll get into that. Another move you can run, Drill Peck. This can go with Protect or Toxic, depending on how you want it to be. Depending on if you want more longevity or if you want more residual damage. The reason Drill Peck is good is, first of all, with the Spikes and Toxic combo, you might think, well, Gengar comes in all the livelong day, and Gengar with Spikes down, notice, there's Spikes again, Gengar with Spikes down is a real pain, because it hits all the non-grounded Pokemon, excuse me, really hard with its great special attack and its ice and electric coverage. And that's very true. Again, more Spike synergy. People deal with this a couple ways. First of all, that Tyranitar that Skarmory is really, really good with, it tends to run Pursuit for Gengar, so it doesn't come in all day. Of course, that can have its own set of problems, you know, Dugtrio, getting worn down by spikes, things of that nature. And generally it gets the job done, but sometimes you want some more security, and that's where Drill Peck comes in, because even against bulky Gengars, Gengar is bulky in order to survive one big hit, which can be the game changer. Your Tyranitar Pursuit, your Salaman's Hidden Power Flying, what have you. Drill Peck is one of the most guaranteed ways to hit a Gengar, because one of Gengar's safest entry points is Skarmory. And with the special defense, you can take a T-Bolt, you'll take that Will-O-Wisp. That can be the difference between Gengar surviving your Aerodactyl Rock Slide late game, or just dying. So Drill Peck is really big for bringing it down, because, as we'll see here, even like a 0 attack, ignore the calc, standard set is not impish. Even this against, let's call it a 248-52 Gengar, the one that lives Gyarados and Sand, Drill Peck, that's so much. That's a 3 KO in Sand. So, I'm not saying you're going to beat Gengar this way, but it stops infuriating scenarios like, oh, Gengar survived my T-Tar's Pursuit, and it keeps switching into my Skarmory and surviving Sand by 2%. Well, no more. Gengar is one of the most threatening Pokemon in the game, and having coverage on it is great. It's also useful for other scenarios. For instance, not having any attacks usually didn't get in Skarm's way, but then annoying things like Focus Punch Heracross started popping up. I mean, Heracross has always run Focus Punch, but it started running Swords Dance Focus Punch, so it would just blow Skarmory away without anything Skarm could do about it. So this turns the tables on that. It also does things like Claydol. Claydol started running Refresh just for Skarmory, so it could... because it deals with Gengar well, but the problem was that before, it would just get Toxic stalled and spiked on permanently. So with Refresh, you just kind of sit on Skarmgar all day. And some people even started running faster Claydol, so faster Claydol with more attack investment, so that they could dance around Taunt Toxic Skarm. and so that they could muscle through Pursuit Tyranitar. And given how much the very common T-Tar, Scarm, Gengar teams rely on spikes to do damage, then all the ways of handling Claydol, forcing damage on Claydol so that it can't thwart your spikes is big. And that's another thing Drill Peck does, because even though it's not doing a lot, it will eventually kill it. So Claydol can't just say, well, if I can't kill the Skarmory because I've chosen to use this assortment of Pokemon like Defensive Suicune and a bunch of other stuff that's not really threatening to destroy Scarm easily, and I'm not going to waste a slot on Magneton, then I'm just going to stall it back. And it tends to work, but Drill Peck tends to thwart that. Taunt Toxic isn't even permanent because you're not immediately threatening it, and Taunt only lasts one turn, so it'll at least limit the spikes. You're going to be dealing with one layer. Of course, Claydol gives Scarm back health, so it doesn't want to face Taunt Toxic. But for the standard Toxic Protect set, the one that is the root of all evil, if you ask advanced players from a while ago anyway. Some people seriously wanted it banned because it was so good. But yeah, that's the whole point, is that Claydol forces Skarmory to think twice about running that set, because it could just be blanked. So, and a lot of Skarmory teams, remember, the whole point of Skarmory, it's not meant to last forever. It's meant to put pressure on with spikes in those free turns that it gets. So if Claydol is stalling it, then you're generally not having as much offense as you could. I mean, I know that sounds obvious. Well, you know, you have more offense if you have spikes on than if you don't. But it's a lot harder to get going for teams with Skarmory, because they tend to rely on that boost that Skarmory gives them. That Dragon Dance Tyranitar earthquaking a Swampert switch makes so much more of a difference when Swampert's also taking spikes on top of it. That's at least leftovers neutered, and that's going to make a bigger difference down the line when it goes for that DD sweep, or when it tries to put it in range to where it can't handle Aerodactyl or Salamence or Metagross anymore. So, yeah, it's a big deal. It's why Magneton exists. And the synergy with Tyranitar, Pursuit, just to enable it against Gengar. Dragon Dance, wearing down Swampert. Even things like DD Ice Beam Tar loving spikes, because this is more of an old school thing, since the Swampert Flygon combination isn't as common anymore. But the idea is Swampert gets worn down by spikes, Flygon doesn't, so you pack the option that OHKO's Flygon. That kind of thing. So, yeah, Skarmory with this one... Oh, Roar Drill Peck. It became practice to start running Roar instead of Whirlwind, so you could at least pretend you have Drill Peck, because when you see Whirlwind, then you know it's either HP flying, and in this day and age, no, or it's or it doesn't. So, but the idea of Whirlwind is just so you don't get stopped by Soundproof Mr. Mime on Baton Pass chains. Those are nonsense unless you're laddering, and even then, I recently laddered, and it's not as much of a pain, you know, but no one's gonna bring Baton Pass in a big tournament, and the one time it's happened in the last like decade, then it failed spectacularly. So yeah, I would use Drill Peck because Roar all the time, just because it's better against the metagame at large, since Baton Pass is considered cheese and all that, because it's unreliable and all that other stuff, and it might even be dealt with tiering wise. So use Roar, fake having Drill Peck. But this set, the Toxic Protect set, is the one that shapes the metagame the most. And the others are great options, obviously, because it's still a Skarmory. And as long as you have bulk and you're taking excuse me. As long as you have that bulk and you're spiking and you're phasing, then you're going to be fine in some aspect. The phasing is just so important, because otherwise, like, Metagross is like, oh, well, 25%? Well, my leftovers, so that's cool. And now I just sit in on this thing and keep attacking it and get all my health back. Roar is what makes it a threat. Roar is what helps it become an emergency answer to setup sweepers. Even taking that +1 Fire Punch Jirachi, that +1 Rock Slide from Tyranitar, whatever it may be. Something like Fortress or Cloister can't do that. So, yes. Now, it's got this one set, just this, pretty much, but that's what it does. I guess I'll also mention something called, and I'm not making this up, this set is legitimately called, whoops. Yeah, it's a newer invention. Now you might think, well, if Magneton's such a big deal, why don't I just, slap HP ground on it? Well, a couple things. First of all, it's not going to kill. Magneton has good defense, even though it's quad weak. Skarmory isn't that strong, Hidden Power isn't that strong. So this YOLO Skarm is meant for like super offensive teams that just want to roll over things like Skarmory Magneton is a popular team. Imagine that. It's not about killing Skarmory. It's more about killing Skarmory the wall rather than Skarmory the spiker, because if you've got things like Zapdos, Mence, Arrow, then you can deal with Skarmory as a spiker, but Skarmory the wall is going to keep thwarting and phasing and threatening to toxic your DD Mence and your DD Tar, and it's going to just annoy you to high heaven. So Magneton goes well with that. It helps your Aerodactyl Sweep, your Mence, your Meta. Honestly, even T-Tar, it appreciates not having to worry about it. If it's Pursuit, it doesn't have to waste a slot on Fire Blast. So this set is pretty much to wipe out the Magneton, because they commonly run HP Fire, because part of the deal with Skarm Mag is that Mag removes Fortress as well, so you don't have to worry about that when spinning, or when spiking, because it threatens to spin. So it runs HP Fire, so it has a 30 speed IV, so even if it runs modest max, you will outrun it, and with Adamant, then you will kill. You have to seriously bulk out your Magneton. I'm talking like well over 200 EVs to deal with it, or at least in that ballpark if you're super efficient. So most people don't do it, so you will just spike, kill it, and then you taunt the other Skarm, and now they're really annoying. Of course, the downside is you don't even have max HP anymore. Special attacks are going to murder you. And in response to this, then people are like, well, I'll lose some speed on my Magneton, which might suck when trying to revenge kill Metagross, but Metagross tends to get faster and faster these days anyway, and I'll just run the bulk and do things like survive Starmie on top of it. Or they even run Timid, because Magneton tends to try to Magneton each other now, so it can trap the other and then remove Skarm, or remove the other mag so their own Skarm can shine. So this set's time came and went already, it kind of feels like, but it's worth mentioning as this is the only other alternative to Skarm. But yeah, and it actually is called that. But yeah, this 4 defense, you might think, why not 4 HP or speed? And the 4 defense actually makes a difference against Aerodactyl's Rock Slide, and that is a scary late game threat. So if you're not really ready to go for that creep ward, I think it's a good investment. Speaking of Magneton and its HP Fire, when you deal with EVing your Skarm, you might want to get those speed EVs in there. Then you can play with the percents, because HP Fire also gives it, or HP Grass, which is the only other alternative it might run. Another reason why this stopped being so effective, they start running HP Grass, because Fortress usage goes down, because people recognize what a blob it is, and so they're freer to run HP Grass. And yeah, so when you're doing that, they both have a 30 special attack IV, and that affects the percentage calc for Magneton to kill standard Skarm. So you can play around with that and take out the special defense. But remember, it's not just for Mag and surviving it and phasing it out and being more obnoxious, but it's also about taking that Mixed Mence Fire Blast and things of that nature. Anyway, so 248, see, it doesn't change. It's still the 19%, call it. And then as soon as you go down to, oh, that's 240, not 244. Or 244, still 19%. And then you get that, that. Or even things like, if you take away out of HP, yeah, things like that. So generally you're gonna want to keep max HP for the physical hits as well, and you can take out of that and throw them in speed, and you'll outrun some Skarm, and you might tie some other people who went for the same benchmarks, because the entire point isn't to creep on the other guy, it's to keep the same important Magneton benchmark. And yeah, so it's worth mentioning if you're going with the standard Protect set. Also worth mentioning is that Magneton started to run Magnet as a response to Special D Skarm, so it has a much higher chance of killing it. So you can also calc with that. This is something to take into account. See, 248 still the same, 244 already a difference. So, I mean, if those speed EVs mean that much to you, then go crazy, but 240, yeah, see, same thing here. So, HP first, generally, because it helps with the physical attacks, like when Snorlax starts trying to focus punch you down. Also worth mentioning things like good old Mixments. And then, see this, I mean, 244, 240, so really just play around with it and see what you get. So, yeah. Alright, now let's go over the matchups and partnerships really with the metagame, because Scarm partners with just about everything. So, yeah, do this with like Metagross, Meteor Mash, and HP, not Meteor Mash as much as HP Fire. So, alright, start. Tyranitar, Dragon Dance, and Choice Band, Prime Abusers. Flat out mix sets generally don't go with Scarm that much, because you're going to want to be pursuing Gengar. So, you're generally going to have Pursuit, DD, or sometimes CB. I think in that order, too. You can also run the full-out physical attacking Tar, which is a good way of keeping out the nonsense. The nonsense being things like Curse Snorlax and Rest Suicune on teams that try to neuter Skarmory. And neutering Skarmory and its spikes, meaning, oh, well, now I need more offense, and, you know, big, fat Tyranitar is hard to bring down and hits really hard, especially with Focus Punch, so that's another option, but we'll get into that. But yeah, Tyranitar's prime because they have great synergy, they have easy to set up, strong, permanent residual damage unless dealt with otherwise, and yeah, it's just amazing. Gengar, also amazing, because immune to Skarmory's most common set. Careful with Drill Peck. But if it's running Drill Peck, it's losing one of Taunt, or Taunt. I mean, yeah, but also Protector, Toxic, so. But yeah, just Prime Abuser, everything in the air gets hit hard. The best you're going to get is like Special Defensive Zapdos, because the most common Gengar set to avoid Pursuit Tar is defensive. So Gengar is, except on really offensive teams, which are all-out offensive Gengar is rare, basically. In general, you're going to want that bulk to survive that Tar Pursuit, survive that immense HP Flying, survive that Psychic from Claydol when trying to block a spin. So, yeah, Specialty Zapdos doesn't love Ice Punches, but can take things without being mauled by spikes, so that's something. Metagross, great defensive partner with Skarmory because it's also steel, but it resists rocks, so it can. Well, it's got to watch out for EQ, meaning Arrow hitting on the switch with the Band Quake, or T-Tar DDing up, and Metagross not being able to tank it. But generally, they go well together on Magneton teams. So you got the 3 steals, and those teams tend to get mopped up by Moltres, but we'll get into that. And like Mixments, and you know, things that use fire. Shocker, things that use fire and can hurt Tyranitar somehow. Scare a team with 3 steals. News 11. But yeah, I think it's one of the best partners because like 3 attacks protect. Metagross just utility check to everything, like the nonsense, like you know, your Suicune, Snorlax. Oh, defensive Celebi, annoying stuff. It's less weak to Magneton, and not so prone to Dugtrio with Protect and Bulk, especially with Spikes helping it out and beating down Waters. So, you also got to be careful of opposing Zapdos, but we'll get to that. So yeah, and then Swampert is kind of like the doesn't need Mag so much Metagross, because it can actually touch Scarm. Even if it's running a mono set with Surf, then you can actually do something to Scarm. And if you're running like EQ, Ice Beam, Roar, then, you know, if Scarm ever wants to switch in, you can phase it out and force Spike's damage somewhere else. And of course, that goes well with your own Scarm. It's a nice second phaser because an important rule of advance is you cannot let Skarmory be your only defense against Curselax, because then you're going to run into a Magneton. Basically, Skarmory can't be your only counter to anything, not just because it gets wailed on a lot, but because of Magneton. So if your Skarmory is the only thing holding your team from being completely flattened by Snorlax, then you're in for a rough ride. So, and that includes things like phasing bulky Suicune and Snorlax and, you know, defensive Celebi. I mean, Swampert's not really the ideal defensive Celebi phaser, but, you know, the Calm Mind, Leech, Psychic things, you know, in a pinch. But the point is that Roar on Swampert is an underappreciated aspect of its game, because it can prevent that annoying thing that walls it from coming in and force damage elsewhere. Underrated tactic. And it can also be that backup line of defense against that annoying Suicune or Snorlax that, you know, is now a threat now that your Skarmory can't phase it and your team is relying on Spike's damage, aka forcing them to switch, and your team doesn't hit that hard, so you can't really force them to switch, so they just stay in and boost and get stronger, and you're helpless. Oh wait, Swampert has Roar. It's not so bad. I can, you know, kick them when they're down. Always a winning strategy. So, yeah. Refresh on Swampert also became quite popular because that helps it offset Spike's damage against Scarm. So, like, when Scarm is whirlwinding and toxicking everything in sight. So, like, picture this scenario. Your Swampert gets whirlwinded in by Scarm. You want to hit it with Surf or Hydro Pump so that your other Pokemon can eventually kill it. But if Skarmory toxics you on top of that, then that's just rough, because now you're not even healing from the spikes at all. Like, you were previously using your sand immunity to kind of shrug off the spikes. I mean, it still hurt, but not nearly as much as something like Suicune. But suddenly you're toxic, and you're on even more of a timer now. And this one ticks a lot faster. So, what do? Do you switch to avoid the toxic? Oh, but then you just keep getting phased back in. Oh, it's a nightmare. With Refresh, you can safely stay in and surf and damage it, and if he toxics you, a big deal. You have Refresh. It's also good against, like, Blissey and other waters and stuff. But it primarily arose as a response to Toxic Skarmory. And of course, we know how good Scarm and Pert are synergy-wise. So, yeah. Finally, offensive Swampert rose as a way of just naturally using its bulk to handle that, to handle the rocks and, you know, physical attacks, Metagross and Mance and whatever, while still putting the hurt on Scarm with, you know, those maxed out Hydros. Even a careful max Scarm does not enjoy this. And I'm not even talking Endeavor, I'm talking leftovers with Focus Punch and Earthquake. Yeah, so this is doing a ton. And it's going to be faster, so you can't exactly, you know, Toxic Protect. It forces you to make a choice, things like that. So this arose at and Focus Punch, so Blissey can't wall it that hard, and yeah. So that's worth considering. It fits on those mixed offense teams. If you go to the Swampert or the Metagross or the Salamence video, then those are touched on in depth. Those teams that just have to wail on Scarm at every point, but they also need Swampert to fall back on defensively. But oh no, this defensive pivot I need for the offensive threats is getting switched into by Skarmory. Well, I pivoted it into Aerodactyl's Rock Slide. Well, now Skarmory is coming in and it's spiking everywhere, and now I can't even deal with those offensive threats. So the offensive Swampert set arose as a way to use its natural bulk and typing to handle those threats while still putting the pressure on Scarm defensively. So, Zapdos. Zapdos is amazing. It both abuses spikes and helps defend against them. Offensive and defensive sets alike. I mean, you know the Gengar principle, where it's basically nothing that resists my stuff really, nothing that resists spikes really wants to switch into me? Well, with Zapdos it's a little different, because Claydol is a threat insofar as it threatens to remove the spikes. But as far as it being a check to Zapdos itself, no way. You know, an offensive set is going to hidden power it 3 times and it's dead, and Claydol's only real response is to explode? No, that's going to get taken advantage of real quick. So the only other real threat is Flygon, who's actually quite good, but Toxic is going to make quick work of that. And you know, Skarmory, of course, switches back into it, so even if it's getting chipped by modest HP grasses, that's going to really suck. So, I mean, Zapdos can definitely run HP Ice with spikes in the same vein that Tyranitar would run Ice Beam with spikes. Let Pert get worn down, I want to kill the thing that's immune to spikes. Also applies to Salamence. Salamence facing off desperately against Zapdos is quite a common scenario when it wants to get that Dragon Dance in, or when there's just nothing else left, but a lot of people prefer that kill on Swampert. Of course, some people think that, you know, with Celebi, then you might want to beat on it harder because it's got Recover and Leech Seed, but Celebi's also affected by Sandstorm, so, and also gets switched into by Skarmory, so a recurring theme is that a lot of the Pokemon here that don't like Skarmory, they will be paired with Magneton. Or on offensive teams, then you have lures. Like with Metagross, Metagross's Choice Band set, very often the correct move is to explode immediately, because if you can deny that, you can have that Magneton-esque thing of denying Skarmory its spikes, which usually doesn't happen because Magneton double switching into Scarm it's harder than you'd think. But yeah, even if you can do that and get the roll, then it's with Metagross you just blow it up, and there goes Scarm spikes. And we've already talked about what happens when Claydol denies Scarm's reliant on Spike's team the spike pressure. So suddenly your offensive team has a lot more room to breathe now that Skarmory's spikes are not, breathing down their necks. They're not on as much of a timer, so that's a common. That's common for offensive, like those mixed teams that don't want to rely on, what's it called, Magneton, because it's a waste of a slot. So it's pretty much, if I feel there's a Scarm here, and you gotta be good at this. Sometimes it's not a bad idea to just blow up immediately, as long as you know what Metagross's switches are and you know how to abuse them. So if you hit Zapdos, you gotta abuse the Zapdos somehow. Maybe you have a Suicune or something. You hit Swampert, well, there's a whole host of things there, but you get the idea. And when Scarm goes down, then your whole team loves it. Snorlax is so much more threatening without Skarmory spikes, because I mean, Sand, it can deal with Sand if it's an offensive set, of course. Which reminds me that Skarmory loves Tyranitar Sand to complement its spikes, because the whole idea of how the Sand immune Pokemon, I mean, they're bothered by spikes, but if they've got leftovers, it's not really that big a deal. Like Swampert, Metagross, Jirachi is another great example. Tyranitar as well. You know how they get Whirlwinded in and they're like, man, I'm more annoyed by the prospect of getting phased in or getting toxic in Tyranitar's case. And that's the bigger problem to me. I can take some spikes damage because Sand means nothing to me. I'm just going to heal it off with leftovers. Well, the whole point of that is that without the Sandstorm, then things like Suicune and Snorlax begin, getting the same thing. Like spikes, I can deal with spikes. I mean, if the whole team can't kill it, then sure. You're probably going to get a lot of phases off, but it's going to be a lot more of an arduous process than just, with Sand accelerates things so much more. I mean, when there's one layer of spikes and Sandstorm up, then, for Snorlax and Suicune, that's immediate 12.5%. Without Sandstorm, then it's, doing 6.6%, let's call it, a pop. That's nothing. You can generate enough offense if that's the rate Skarmory is working at, even if it's spiking. So it really gives it a tougher time. So, but yeah, Zapdos, going back to that point, modest sets, T-Bolt, HP Grass, Toxic, Filler, Protect, Baton Pass, Rest, whatever. That's in the Zapdos video, but it's just an amazing abuser, and it's amazing at guarding against things like Gengar that will annoy. I mean, it's not an ironclad counter, of course, especially when resting, but it can definitely threaten it out and reinforce your defenses, especially when you might want to try divide and conquer thing with your defensive team, which is always effective to have. Like if Metagross booms on Zapdos, instead of hitting that Scarm or that Pert target, then your counters to their other Pokemon are still alive. So it's a trade you would take. So their overlapping defensive coverage can be really nice. And Zapdos also has great properties like pressure, meaning, my Mixments tried to Fire Blast a Scarm. Oh, well, Zapdos switched in. There goes 2 PP for the cost of, 0 damage. So, and with Protect, it can get messy, so that kind of thing. It's like mixed horror and stuff as well. Yeah. Scarm on Scarm, I guess, it's pretty much Whirlwind War or Taunt stuff. Not much to it. Blissey hates Sandstorm and spikes. So, I think that's fairly self-explanatory. I think we touched on why Fire Blast is good, just because otherwise it just wants to run Seismic Toss and Ice Beam for, Suicune and Jirachi, and then, Gengar and Salamence and Dugtrio, and then, you throw in your Toxic, your T-Wave, your Wish, your Counter, your Heal Bell. That doesn't want to run Fire Move. I mean, what else does that hit? Like Fortress? Come on, give me a break. So it's, I mean, I'm not saying it's not useful for also hitting Metagross and Heracross really hard, 2 common switch-ins, but I'm just saying generally Thunder Wave would be preferable because, you know, they can shrug that off, and I don't know, max special attack Bliss is really strong, but with Fire Blast, but it starts to make moveset concessions because other moves can do what Fire Blast does against non-Skarmory targets, and Fortress, I guess, but he's a lump. So you should have a plan for them anyway, given the nature of the teams that Bliss finds itself on. Celebi, offensive HP Fire. I mean, just unboosted, it's still not doing that much. Scarm can comfortably spike and Whirlwind, and it can even protect because what are you going to do? Calm Mind as it phases you out? Yeah, that was useful. Good job. So that's a big one. Of course, like the Calm Mind Leech sets can kind of be, or the defensive sets, they're commonly paired with Magneton because Scarm just stuffs them so hard. Because Celebi is an amazing defensive Pokemon, but if it's just giving so many free turns to Skarmory, then it's kind of like, well, this kind of impedes not just Celebi, but the whole team at that point. So, yeah. But Calm Mind Leech is one of the few that doesn't need it. Like, if you just want a standard Leech defensive Celebi, that's one thing, but Calm Mind Leech can really make Scarm pay for wanting to spike on it. So, and it keeps your whole team healthy in the face of those spikes in Sandstorm. So, yeah, and Celebi also often runs Baton Pass, and wouldn't you know it, Baton Passing into Magneton. If Skarmory switches into Celebi right away and there's a Mag, that's scary stuff. And of course, Skarmory doesn't want to take a +1 HP Fire. It doesn't want to switch in on the Calm Mind and HP Fire. Because in a one-on-one, at least you can spike, then Whirlwind, then you've done something rather than phase it out. But if it Calm Mind's on the switch, then Skarmory's getting pressured. Yeah, same kind of goes for the offensive version of Suicune. You don't want a one-on-one, but if Skarm's the switch-in, then it's in trouble. Skarm is also very good at handling the defensive sets, because his Surf doesn't do that much, and Spikes and Sandstorm really takes a toll on Suicune like little else, but that's why Suicune is a part of those teams that are designed to just completely neuter Skarmory, and we will go over those later. Jirachi, Scarm is an emergency check to Jirachi, but it's not as good because, again, Sandstorm doesn't leave as much of a permanent mark on it. The spikes do help, of course, especially when things like Aerodactyl or Salamence try to revenge, but it also makes Jirachi hard to be like a de facto check to Zapdos and things of that nature, but it's definitely not as effective as the 2 Pokemon above it. So, Wish, of course, helps the whole team against it. And Jirachi is also a prime Skarmory partner because it resists Rock, it has Wish, you know, it's great at support. Scarm, of course, covers its ground weakness, similar to Metagross. And defensive Jirachi is also great because it happens to have a move that easily threatens opposing Skarmory. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's threatening an Oko or anything, but it definitely means it's not going to be getting spiked on all the livelong day. So, yes. Also, some Calm Mind sets run Thunder, just to really pound Suicune, and the benefit on Scarm is also nice, but generally Fire Punch is what Skarmory's going to deal with, and it deals with that just okay enough. Remember, Skarmory's not a permanent, immovable wall. It gets in there, it stuffs your offensive Pokemon in the most obnoxious way possible, spikes, and then it lets the teammates help in that regard. It enables its teammates, basically. Snorlax is the biggest Skarmory hater in the whole world. I'm pretty sure they introduced Skarmory in GSC just because of how impossible Snorlax is to counter in RBY, but yeah, it really hates it. However, it's got some tools. Of course, Snorlax Magneton is pretty much the most obvious thing on the planet, whether it's offensive lax or defensive lax. The thing with defensive Curse Lax is that it still lacks the coverage necessarily to threaten things, whereas with the offensive set, it's like, yes, the one thing that really scared me is gone. Now I can Body Slam, Shadow Ball, Earthquake, boom, anything I want. And Snorlax is really good at that, so it does enjoy Magneton or Metagross. Just immediately blowing it up, and then it gets an extra teammate that might do something else. Of course, you do have to make up for losing Metagross's defensive value so early on, but with Choice Band, its defensive value tends to be limited as the game wears on. So, very rarely are you going to get that matchup where you're just going to meteor mash the slower team to oblivion that has no recourse against it in the form of trappers. So, yeah, that's kind of off topic, but it's important. So, as for dealing with it without the help of a partner, then the offensive sets, Fire Blast is traditional, and you're thinking, ugh, that's rough, because Snorlax's special attack stat is measly. So either you invest too much and you still don't do that much, you're like in some horrible 4-hit KO limbo, or you don't invest and it's even worse, and it's a free switch to Will-O-Wisp, Gengar, and Tyranitar, those ever-present Skarmory partners that are really common and good and will just suffocate you, and Snorlax hates Skarmory for enabling it. I mean, T-Tar and Gengar are fine, but Skarmory hurts the whole team, so it hates that. What it started doing in more recent times is starting to run Focus Punch, because again, with the attackless Skarmory thing and Snorlax being immune to Toxic, it can just spam Focus Punch on it, and you can't switch T-Tar into this. Of course, you have to have a plan for Gengar, but let's be real, Fire Blast was sucking in that scenario anyway. Because it's easy to pivot around it, and I mean, unless your goal was to dink Gengar so you could get that +1 Salamence KO, but then your Snorlax is just useless, and it's harder to generate meaningful offense with it, aka blowing up on the thing you want, so all you've really done is dink that Gengar, and this is all a product of Skarmory suffocating you, and just you have to attack with whatever you have out, because otherwise you're just going to get phased into oblivion. So yeah, Focus Punch is generally going to hit Skarm harder too, because it doesn't invest in physical defense. So, and it also prevents Tyranitar from coming in. Gives Metagross a good smack as well. So, Focus Punch is quite common and quite good. Gotta watch out for Drill Peck, of course, but shouldn't be your only method of dealing with it, but it can definitely help. So, yeah, Salamence, DD, Choice Band, love Magneton, love CB Gross blowing it up, love Curse Self-Destruct Snorlax. That's a risky one because Skarmory, of course, runs Protect. So if you curse on the switch, then, you might know something's up. It might be hard to pull that self-destruct trigger when the other guy might be like, let me protect just in case, or let me go to Gengar and see what's up. So that one's, a little harder to pull off. But it can do the job as well if you want to save Metagross to blow up on the water or something. That totally works as well. Just gotta know what you're doing. So, yeah, then Salamence, DD, or CB likes, the Skarm lures, the heavy Skarm lures, or the Magneton. And the mix set has to be careful of Fire Blasting. I will say this, in a one-on-one, it does prevent Skarmory from spiking and Toxicking. So, and then you gotta ride that momentum from there. Because Mixments is very commonly a threat to Skarmory teams. The most plug-and-chug kind of Skarmory teams. They're formulaic because they work. Being formulaic within a team is not necessarily a bad thing. It's usually stems from it being so good that it's the rational conclusion you come to when you're trying to optimize some sort of shell for a Skarm team. And you're like, well, these guys go really well with it for X, Y, and Z reasons, and Salamence tends to be really good against those structures that we'll cover later. Dugtrio is a great buddy with Skarm. Dugtrio tends to come up short on a lot of the Pokemon it tries to KO, and Spikes help solve that because nothing is immune to Spikes and also is a Dugtrio target, so it's pretty great. Even helps do things like put things like Suicune, offensive, and Snorlax into a range for it, as well as, of course, bulky Tyranitar, Jirachi, Metagross, Celebi. So it really helps. And of course, if you're brave, then you can trap your opponent's Magneton with a Dugtrio. It's fantastic. It's kind of hard though, because some players, you switch your Skarm into a Metagross Meteor Mash, and they're like, well, the thing about 2 spikes is it's just not that good. Its only benefit is outstripping leftovers by like 3%. Generally, there's kind of a rule. Usually, if you cannot get the 3rd spike, don't go for the 2nd. So, unless you can get the 3rd spike shortly after. But generally, it's safer to Whirlwind and cause some damage that way, rather than going for the 2nd spike. Even if you're Skarmory facing a Magneton, then you're probably going to want a Whirlwind just to keep Skarmory as death fodder for later. cause some damage elsewhere rather than just the second spike and then just try to kill Magneton after. So it's generally safer. Second spike tends to be really bad. I mean, it's still more damage. How can that be bad? But the point isn't that it's bad on its own. It's that you have better options. So, yeah. As for Dugtrio, it's also a major Scarm bait, of course, and Scarm Dug teams sometimes tend to be really prone to getting phased all day by opposing Scarm, so that's something to watch out for. You got to be really careful with, of course, I was going to say your Gengar, and of course it goes really well with Gengar as well, because it traps all of Gengar's counters, and it's even more easy since Gengar's counters are grounded, spikes, Dugtrio, beautiful. So you got to be careful. Of course, you got to be careful with that Zapdos. Zapdos really thwarting all those spikes plans. But yeah, so the point I was making earlier about Metagross and mashing, you can generally mash twice on Scarm, because 2 layers of spikes isn't the worst thing, because you're really putting it in that T-Bolt range. And 2, especially for an offensive team, second layer is like second layer, whatever. And you want to prevent that early Dugtrio double switch. In a way, it might be easier to, if it's just like an offensive Metagross, no mix set, just, physical, and he's just mashing you over and over again, it might be easier to go to Dugtrio after he's mashed you. So you switch in, take a mash. Stay in, spike as he mashes again, then it might be easier to go to Dug, because he's just trying to soften you up and catch that initial double switch, because the obvious move is Scarm, then go right to Dug. It's a hard play. There is no right or wrong answer. It's up to you on how you want to play that, but it's something to keep in mind, because you might think, well, I want to kill the Magneton. Speaking of, we're going to skip Starmie real quick and go to Magneton, who tries to do the same thing. Of course, you might think, well, isn't this just a speed tie? Kinda. So a lot of Magneton run Thunder Wave to help out with that. Thunder Wave, HP Fire, and then you might even put it in Drill Peck range for your own Scarm, because so many of them are magnet to kill opposing Scarm. But Pursuit Tar will generally help out with that. The Scarm Mag teams really love that. So that's another, trying to trap each other. But other than that, the whole Scarm Magneton relationship is well documented. Pretty much, hey, you have a Pokemon that's really good, except for it hates Scarm, well, there goes Magneton. A lot of those teams actually tend to be pretty Magneton weak. Dugtrio weak, so there's another point for Dugtrio. You're going to kill Magneton, then you can finish off T-Tar, Metagross, whatever. You just got to be careful of them getting out ahead of you, ahead of your drag them out with spikes plan. While you're wearing them out, they're trying to get to your crucial wall so that they can punish that Dugtrio with that DD Ments and then sweep you. So, once Scarm goes down, then it's just you got to get the damage on Gengar, so you bait it in with Snorlax, and you chip it with Pursuit Metagross or something, and you blow up on the water, and then something else, like Tyranitar gets dugged, and then Ment sets up, and then you're safe. Of course, Skarmory's ever-present partner Blissey, this is where Scarm Bliss originated, is still kind of an annoying Ments check because it lives HP Flying and has Ice Beam, which is why some Ments run DD Brick Break. Yeah. But the standard Scarm Bliss team has a lot of checks for DD Ments, so that's what I'm talking about. And insofar as those teams are trying to break down all the common relevant walls to get out ahead of you and then sweep when you're on the back foot. I will be right back. So enjoy this calming Pokemon Reborn remix. Great game. I've been watching a little bit of it on YouTube because it looks way too hard for me to play. Alright, continuing on. Starmie. You might think, well, this is a big one because it's a spinner. Well, the traditional spinner set doesn't tend to hit Skarmory too hard, gets Toxic Protect stalled, and it's a whole mess because it's going to keep its spikes up. So, of course, it's not like Skarmory has to be perfectly healthy, and of course, we know that the Toxic Protect set has kind of died out. Not even died out, just took a little bit of a dip in popularity in order to be anti-Skarm. But the defensive Starmie set is not that common. So I apologize for the ums, by the way. I realize I use them a lot. That's a habit I should try to kick. So Starmie with the defensive set is not so great against the traditional variants. Although otherwise it'd be great because Gengar doesn't want anything to do with that stab psychic. Even the special defensive sets, because it can't really kill it back unless it explodes and then it follows up with Dugtrio. And it's a mess just to keep the spikes. It just kind of bend over backwards. But yeah, things like T-Wave Starmie can mess with Scarm really nicely. As long as you're not supremely hung up on Starmie necessarily removing spikes, because like paralyzing Scarm and like paralyzing Gengar, and you can forego that super effective coverage for help elsewhere. But the thing about bulky Starmie is that it also doesn't counter much else besides like Endeavor Swampert, so it's not seen as much. It does pretty well against Moltres too, but like it's not so common. It could be used definitely, but it's generally not. It's not the topmost anti-Skarm thing, because a lot of the anti-Skarm things have other purposes, he says, as he talks at length about Magneton. But Magneton does have a more concrete other purpose. That rock resist for Aerodactyl. I mean, resisting 3 of Aerodactyl's 4 moves is no joke. Resist stab from Salamence and Rock Slide from Salamence, and helps thwart Gengar a little bit. So I would definitely say Magneton has more defensive use than Starmie, outside of killing Skarm. And it actually kills Skarm rather than just, I'm going to delay it a little. The thing that really delays Skarm is Refresh Claydol, as we spoke of, but we also spoke of how you can get around that. Things like Gengar using Destiny Bond to open up its teammates. There's another open up its teammates is a thing that exists. Especially with Taunt DD Tar, then helping out. DD Tar sometimes run Taunt just so Skarm can't phase it, because think about it like this: DD on switch, Skarm comes in, Taunt, second DD, totally free, and now whatever if they had an initial counter, they probably have gone to it, so it can be a checkmate. Of course, Claydol stonewalls it because it resists Quake Slide and isn't spikes affected, so Destiny Bond Gengar helps protect spikes and help out in that department. So, yeah. Starmie, excuse me. I forgot that it's one of the most common lasts on the Big 5 for Scarm Bliss, because it cleans really hard. Like Gengar and Zapdos, it slaughters Pokemon that are immune to spikes, like Salamence and Gyarados, and hits Zapdos really, really hard. And everything else just gets kind of crushed with those spikes down. Starmie can kind of come up a little short against things like Metagross and Swampert with its power, and even things like Celebi, which it hits super effectively. But with spikes down, it's a whole different beast. And it, of course, provides some semblance of rapid spin support for its team, even though it's not, ideal. I'm talking Hydro, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Rapid Spin, max special attack, max speed, no frills, no nonsense, just offense with the support capability. Because if it pulls off even one spin in a Spikes war of attrition, then that can be huge. That can be a deal breaker. Game breaker, I guess. Deal breaker is kind of different. Anyway, Aerodactyl is another great last on those teams because thanks to its immunity to both Spikes and Sandstorm, a trait it shares with Flygon, Claydol, and of course Skarmory, then it tends to hang around and its counters tend to not. So with those spikes down, then your Swamperts, Jirachis, Metagrosses, they tend to get beaten down, especially with repeated assaults. I mean, Aero doesn't really switch into much too safely. You gotta be really aggressive with it, but it can be merciless because it's tied for the fastest thing in OU with Jolteon. So, and Skarm is a big part of facilitating that. Because think about it like this: even for like DD Tar, which is a lot more self-sufficient, then you Earthquake a Swampert on the switch, or you Double Edge if you're really brave, and then what? Then you still get they heal it off because you got to switch, and then they have protect, so they're really healing it off. Spikes, not only are you making that hit count a lot more just by neutering leftovers, or if you get 2 layers, slightly outdoing leftovers, out damaging rather, I should say, then you switch into them after and threaten to continue. Of course, it's not as good with Magneton in the picture, but you can escape the mag once, and then you have your death fodder, and even just that one spike makes a world of difference. So Arrow really loves having Scarm and T-Tar on its team. Jolteon is like the special version of Arrow, but it's also nice because thanks to its fast special attacking nature and good bulk and good special typing on the defensive side, it can kind of be a Gengar check, meaning you don't really have to run Pursuit Tar. There are a couple teams out there like this that run Jolt Spikes. They just love Jolteon, especially because Volt Absorb is nice. It's also a great Zapdos check. And a lot of Scarm teams are kind of like, well, we're pretty good against most things, except Zapdos is really annoying. Probably going to have to switch T-Tar into it, and that's not good, lol. But Jolteon absorbs the heck out of it, and, I mean, in a longer battle against a special defensive Zapdos, it's not going to love that. But that's also less threatening to Tyranitar. So it's just really, really strong against the offensive sets, because the offensive sets don't want to take status at all, or even the hits. So yeah, Jolteon's really good on those teams. Of course, it's got problems with Claydol, but the Claymag stuff is really obnoxious. But yeah, Heracross, pretty much the Salic sets need Magneton, or, you know, heavy Scarm killing, I guess. And the Focus Punch sets sometimes exist to destroy. Especially Choice Band Focus Punch has a 25% chance to OHKO special defensive Scarm. Just clean. It's amazing. But you gotta be more careful about Focus Punching in front of Scarm right now, because it has Drill Peck. So, of course, if it's got Drill Peck, it doesn't have Protect, so it's not healing off your Metagross's Mash or your Snorlax's Focus Punch, or it doesn't have Toxic, so it's not threatening something like a Swampert or Suicune or Zapdos anymore. So, yeah. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Moltres, those Scar Mag teams that we mentioned, they tend to get totally roasted by Moltres. Moltres is also great on spikes. Actually, I would say Moltres is most common with them, because it helps, even if they've got a true wall, which a lot of teams don't, that Milotic or Blissey, then spikes and sand, uncomfortable. Nothing really like switching into Will-O-Wisp. I mean, that whole Zapdos kind of holds off Mixments and Gengar, who like spikes hitting their counters. Doesn't apply to Moltres. I mean, he can do it like once, but you know, you can jump off a building once. Still not a good idea. So, yeah, Moltres is really, really scary, especially if you start stacking those really synergistic Pokemon. I'm talking your Celebi, Mag, Scarm, Meta, T-Tars, and it can get messy really quickly. Moltres is one of a kind. And of course it loves, with the residual damage like Gengar's and Will-O-Wisp, I mean, Moltres is even nicer at that because it's not as scared of Pursuit Tyranitar. Not nearly as scared. So Milotic, you know, Magneton. Refresh Milotic is actually, like Swampert, it got tired of spikes versus, you know, switching, or Surf versus Switch, and, you know, the dilemma of Toxic versus Whirlwind, and started running Refresh, and now it's like, oh, well, this has Refresh and 32 Recover PP, how obnoxious. With Swampert, it was like, well, it has Protect and doesn't get hit by Sand. With Milotic, it's like, oh my god, I'm never killing this thing. A lot of Scar and Bliss teams struggle to kill Milotic and struggle to really switch into it safely because it Toxic Blissey and then something else has to eat a Surf, because it's not like it's Blissey plus other Pokemon that eat Surfs. That's another common pitfall. So, of course, it is very good with Magneton. And spikes are what really turned Milotic into a not rock counter. Like, it's already a pretty desperate DD Tar arrow check because of, you know, Rock Slide Flinch and the fact that it does so much damage, but with spikes, it's really not a counter. Things like Banned Salamence, too. Milotic will never get 2-hit KO'd by Ments, even in Sand, and with a spike down, then it's a lot more contentious. Would not recommend. So, Flygon, amazing because it hits everything decently and also doesn't care about spikes or sand. Of course, Fire Blasting Scarm is kind of because it's stronger than Snorlax, but not really to the point where it makes much of a relevant difference in terms of actually like bringing Scarm down. The most it'll do is like pick off a weakened Scarm, whereas Rock Slide is just kind of like bleh. But it's yeah, not something you want to get involved with. Flygon Strength is more fitting on those teams that like the famous team Superman that are just so focused on being Spikes immune. And thanks to its typing, alongside Swampert, it can hold off things like Electrics. In spite of, the whole Electrics plus Spikes are dangerous thing because they hit the Levitator / Flyer. So, yeah, it's really good. It's also a great Spikes abuser because if it's not Scarm, everything else gets hit pretty hard. With EQ, Rock Slide, HP Bug. Like, even Claydol, it's not really a great check. HP Bug hits hard, especially from an offensive set. Flygon's also a great Skarmory partner with a defensive set on those Skarmory Magneton teams because it doesn't mind the standard mixed Tyranitar at all as opposed to Swampert. Doesn't care about Spikes, doesn't really mind Crunch. I mean, gotta watch out for the Ice Beam, but hey, that's another move that T-Tar doesn't have. So, yeah, we've gone over the DD, Ice Beam, T-Tar, Flygon, Spikes triangle, so I think that's pretty self-explanatory. A lot of Flygon, even on offensive teams, they're just going to be like, you know what, my Metagross will blow this up. I'm not going to sacrifice an otherwise good move like Substitute just to have Fire Blast. Although, I will say, EQ, Slide, Bug, Fire Blast is pretty darn good. Because even if you're not going to use it to beat down Scarm from full health, if you're like hitting it from every angle with your Metagross and your Swampert and whatnot, it might be nice that if you Whirlwind into Flygon, you might be able to finish it off. But yeah, and the defensive sets with Magneton and Scarm are very good. So, especially as Magneton gives you an extra layer of banned Metagross defense, which you lose when you trade Pert in for Flygon and lose that Steel Resist in exchange for the nice Spikes immune, as well as not being as threatened by CB Gone teams, because Choice Band Flygon, Magneton for Scarm, Pursuit Tar for Gengar, Earthquake everything else. Swampert's not taking that, are you kidding me? Stab Banded Earthquake? Yikes. With Spikes? No, double yikes. So, Flygon countering itself really is nice there. Cloister versus Scarm, the Toxic Protect stuff is gonna be pretty much there, and Gengar owns spinning Cloister, although not too much throughout a game, but that one's kind of self-explanatory, I think. I mean, generally, what you'll see is Cloister gets its 3 layers, and then dies to the Toxic, while Skarmory stacks them. So, and generally Skarmory's like, well, I'm prepared for this, and I just killed a Pokemon, so I see this as an absolute win. Of course, doesn't like dealing with Spikes. I mean, who would be like, well, I would prefer my side of the field have 3 Spikes on it, but, Fortress, an annoying little bugger because he is Sand immune and spins, and often with Pursuit Tar, then, he's also Toxic immune, so it's harder to wear him down. So that's where Magneton comes in. Some people even EV their Magneton to live for your Earthquake. It can be done, surprisingly. But yeah, they do that because they just want to kill the Fortress, and Spikes is whatever. It's just about killing the spinner, and then you Whirlwind all day long, because most 4E teams don't exactly threaten to damage Scarm at every turn because they're slow and have Fortress. Drill Peck is also good on Scarm for being able to finish off a weakened Fortress. Like if it's been hit with Mag, or if you've managed to predict around it a bunch. So yeah, Pursuit Tar also tends to do that though. Yeah, other than that, it can be an obnoxious game of Gengar predictions and Pursuit Tar and Whirlwinds. Generally, Scarm is on the upper hand because as soon as Fortress gets it wrong, then the whole point of using Fortress, aka to keep Spikes off to spin, then it's compromised, and Skarmory can just wait for you to not do that a lot. Spike on 4E switch in, Whirlwind. If he spins, just do it again. If he spikes, there's your advantage. And you can go to Gengar whenever you want. You can try to suss out that T-Tar, suss out his other Pokemon. So Fortress generally gives Scarm a lot of turns to decide what he wants to do. And I mean, sure, if you manage to get that Gengar out of the way, then it can feel pretty helpless. Shutting Scarm down in a Refresh Claydol-esque manner, but it's generally is not that hopeless. as long as you don't start figuring out how you're going to deal with it before your Gengar goes down. So there's Skarmory versus Fortress. Yeah, P2 doesn't want to eat Toxic, hits T-Bolt pretty hard, but still a 3 KO, obnoxious with Sand and Protect, kind of self-explanatory. Skarm will often use it as an entry point. So, to Toxic and Spike and be threatening, so yeah. Porygon 2 also tends to be paired with Mag sometimes though, so kind of a moot point. As for Gyarados, you may have noticed that even though this does not have an attacking move, I insisted on the 31 attack IV. That is because Taunt Gyarados forces you to struggle, and you want to do as much damage with that struggle as you possibly can. So, that's pretty much it. Drill Peck also helps with that. Gyarados also tends to be paired with Magneton quite often. So, there's that. So basically, the Scarm principle of don't use Scarm as your only Gyarados check. Okay, so there's that. Excuse my chair. Alright, so those are the big guys. Now the Skarmory teams, and then the special segment on the Anti-Skarmory teams. Excuse me. So, first of all, actually, you know what, we're going to start off with those. By Anti-Skarmory team, I don't mean Magneton physical offense. You know, your... sorry, I have to type a lot here, so you might not get the full force of my mic. I'm trying. Meta, and then Mag, Snorlax, Mence, Swampert, Heracross, like this kind of thing. Like, you can substitute in your Gyaradoses and your Tyrannitars and your whatever, but your Celebi, whatnot. But this is the general guess. I don't mean this as an anti-Skarm team. This is just an offense team that doesn't mind, that tries to get rid of Skarm. I mean, this could easily be, you know, a choice band Metagross with instant explosion, and then, you know, you throw in your Tyranitar here for, you know, your extra offense, or your, well, not Arrow without Sand. Generally, you don't see that, but, you know, Zapdos. Generally, you'd see Tyranitar like here. You would always see Tyranitar in these kinds of teams, basically. But you get the point. So now this can become Arrow. It can also be whatever. But yeah, so it's not really an anti-Skarm team. What I'm referring to more are, I mean, these teams are so intent on destroying Skarmory and its spikes because, and it was really born out of a, well, Skarmory's annoying, time to dedicate my entire team to killing it and then reaping the benefits. And the problem with that is that by doing this, you very often open yourself up to many other combinations, or not even combinations, just many other Pokemon, because did you know that offense outside of Skarmory spikes with Sandstorm exists? But here's the idea. Magneton, Claydol, you don't even have to waste a slot on Refresh now because you're not going toe-to-toe with Toxic Skarm. And then you've got the prime beneficiaries of not having to deal with spikes, Suicune, Snorlax. They're the big ones. You can throw in your Celebi to Baton Pass. You can throw in your Dugtrio to get rid of Tyranitar as well, and then they might even go so far as to use, I mean, Metagross can be here, and you can run like Sunny Day Dugtrio, or you can, you know, run Zapdos, which is Spadef and covers a lot of stuff, and, you know, Rain Dance. So you can do stuff like that, you know, remove Skarm, remove Spikes, remove T-Tar, remove Weather, and then, yeah, those teams are pretty neutered, but there's just a lot these teams still struggle with. It's pretty much, the idea of this team is, well, I think Skarm is going to just sit on me and switch back and forth, so I'm going to do it in return. I'm going to get rid of the Skarm, the Spikes, and the Tyranitar and the Weather, and then I'm just going to switch between these guys who are unkillable in Sam. So it's kind of attempting to reverse the roles on Skarmory when that's not even exactly what Skarmory does. Skarmory is more of an offensive Pokemon than much else. But yeah, these teams exist, and you have to be aware of these. Like, generally a good idea is, you know, do as much damage before you even send in your Skarmory, because the worst feeling is when Skarmory goes down to Mag early, and then you're desperately trying to protect your Gengar, protect your spikes by switching Gengar into Claydol and attacking it from every corner, and it can be a rough experience. And let me tell you, usually 9 out of 10 times they are going to win that fight. So generally you're going to try to want to exploit their lack of offense without the trap by not giving them the trap. Do as much as you can before the Skarmory goes down, would be my advice. Okay, so now that we've covered those, let's go into the Scarm teams. This video's already gone on for a while, so I'm going to try to keep it brief. Here's the standard. Whoops. Standard. Scarm. Bliss. Special attacks. Status. Gengar. Spin blocking. Spike abuse. Tyranitar. Sand. Checks things. Swampert. True rock check. You need that. You need that backup physical check to things for when mag exists. You want that true rock check. These 5 you can never go wrong with, pretty much. That other team I just mentioned, the Magdoll it's referred to, or Claymag I guess, but Magdoll usually, Magneton and Claydol, then they try to get free wins against this, but you don't have to, because you just get your T-Tar in on the Mag and then just do as much damage as you can. Just be careful. This is generally going to be bulky, so unless you give them a lot of free shots on it, it'll generally stay out of range, because they're not doing that much damage otherwise, so... yeah, this is the big 5 of Advance OU. You got to be able to beat this in order to have a good team. So this can be Pursuit, can be Choice Band, can be Dragon Dance, can be the set I was referring to earlier. Look to the Tyranitar video for more information. But yeah, this is like the... Since you don't have to... Remember, when you use Scarm, especially the one that can't hit Gengar with Drill Peck, then you have to have the Will-O-Wisp method. You can have Zapdos here, to handle Gengar a little more. You can have Refresh Swampert, because if it's running Fire Grass, if it's running Fire Grass Will-O-Wisp, then it won't be killing Zapdos. So, and this also helps when opposing Scarm is phasing you around. Things like that. And it also lets you run this Tyranitar set, which should not have that, which helps do damage when the other team is so set on bringing the game to a halt and, you know, kind of auto-winning. Once the sand goes down, you just wallop everything here. Because in sand, even Suicune is going to not like repeated hits from this, and they're not really pressuring you that much, so you have all the time in the world. So, you know, get your Will-O-Wisps off with Gengar when it's not, you know, risking its life just to protect that 1, maybe 2 layers. Things like that. But yeah, generally Pursuit is also big here. You know, maybe Drill Peck, because Gengar is also a common stall breaker against these teams. As for the lasts, the big ones are Dugtrio for Magneton, finishing anything grounded off, finishing Mixtar off, Metagross, Heracross, Jirachi, you know, annoying things, Magneton of course. Starmie, as we mentioned, the very good cleaner that also happens to help with spikes. Remember that Skarmory, the Dugtrio version really doesn't like Skarmory, especially if this Bliss does not have Fire Blast. I mean, it can, like soft-boiled, but then you're going to start making concessions like against substitute Suicune. If you don't have Seismic Toss and without Toxic, then it can be annoying, so, you know, generally Seismic Toss, this set is usually standard. You know, you can throw your Thunder Wave or your Wish in there or whatever, but something to consider. Gengar is just generally bulky Will-O-Wisp, you know, Destiny Bond, Ice Point. This is a trendy set right now, but, you know, the bulk, it can be whatever. You can have Explosion, you can have Thunderbolt, you can have no Taunt, you know, things like this. You can go Taunt, Fire, and Giga Drain for Refresh Per and Pursuit Tar purposes. Of course, these teams tend to also... This Tyranitar set, you know, the Rock Slide one with the max HP, tends to be good because the Pursuit Tar set tends to be just another Pokemon that Spidef Zapdos stalls out. So, and with pressure, that can get really dicey. So that's another reason to run that. But, you know, if you run Pursuit, that's fine too. You just have to be aware of what you're not so good against. But yeah, the Rock Slide thing here and being weak to other Scarm, we mentioned that. That's why Spin is nice. Arrow is another traditional cleaner because, especially, you can run Choice Band Tar. You can totally run, you know, these 4 and then double Choice Band. It's really powerful. It really gives you a way to throw out some powerful moves instantly, and with spikes, it's just nasty. So you can. Those are the traditional ones. So some weak points of this team. Zapdos is also good. I mean, anything is good, really. These 5 are just so good that you could run just these 5 and be successful. I'm not recommending you do. Metagross has seen use in recent times. Anyway, so Refresh Milotic if you're not toxicing it, and, you know, Blissey, and then a bunch of things that don't like to run Toxic. Saving Grace, only 16 Toxics, so you can kind of stall it and, surf, switching between these two, but I would be careful. So yeah, especially because this last doesn't tend to do that great against it. Yeah, other than that, it's things I mentioned already, like Mixed Salamence is really scary, so just gotta be careful with switching Bliss in. Yeah, that's another reason why Spadef on Gengar is nice. And maybe pivot T-Tar into a Rock Slide, maybe get ready to trade your health for it, or surprise, now you get your free pivot into Gengar and either use Brick Break or it's switched to like Skarmory or Swampert, and Gengar has a good matchup against those. Hallelujah, everybody wins. Well, mostly you win in every scenario there. Alright, so that's the big 5, and now I'm going to go over those Magneton teams, and then we'll call it. So, Scarm Mag, it's pretty much Magneton in the Gengar slot, and of course you give up a lot. You add some weaknesses to like fighting and ground and Dugtrio, yikes. But in exchange for also dealing with Fortress, but in addition to dealing with Fortress, you force the Scarm KO, and that lets you play around with things like Metagross and Arrow and Celebi a lot more freely. And Tyranitar, of course, for Pursuit. So, spikes, and then you get to trap a lot of common responses to the spikes. Scarm goes here. Gengar goes here. Celebi is also nice for Natural Cure, in case, because remember, with Scarm, you got to have that way to deal with it. We'll deal with the Will-O-Wisp, so Natural Cure is nice, because Blissey can hold up against it. You got to be careful of Gengar and Dugtrio, of course, and taunt Gengar, with Sandstorm and Spikes. It can be contentious, but it's nice to have another look at it. So yeah, these are the kind of things. And the thing I mentioned, Moltres, yeah, look at that. Dead, Will-O-Wisp, can't even hurt it. Will-O-Wisp. So these kinds of teams are really strong, don't get me wrong, but you have to be careful with them. Play-wise. Maybe you spam Toxic because even if Moltres doesn't come in, at least it didn't come in. Things like that. Pursued it with Tyranitar a lot. Maybe run Rock Slide because even though it's burn, at least you might have to go mono with it. But maybe you run a fast Psychic Celebi. I don't know. Maybe you run Protect on all these guys and waste its Fire Blast. But if it spams Will-O-Wisp, then it's scary too. Maybe you run Sub Seed Celebi, which can also Baton Pass into Magneton more easily, and helps against things like Suicune. So yeah, those are those. And since I'm here, I guess I may as well mention that on that big 5, then Moltres is a perfectly fine last. It doesn't do much against, unless the Spikes and Sand are already down, it's not going to do much against Suicune and Snorlax, in which case, that's not really the point, because in that case, you're probably doing fine against them anyway. But it's really, really nice. It also absorbs Will-O-Wisp, like completely absorbs, not affected by. It threatens Gengar. You can run Roar. You get a second Will-O-Wisp Pokemon. You can run, as long as you have a Fire move and HP Grass, then the rest can kind of be up to you. But generally, Will-O-Wisp is used. Then you can run Roar. You can run Protect, Agility, Morning Sun if you're that way inclined. I don't know. It's defensive coverage overlapping with Metagross as long as you don't switch into a CB Rock Slide. But really, when the targets are Scarm and Pert, CB Rock Slide, no thanks. It picks up immediate kills against big threats, so it's a nice Pokemon to have. But yeah. Now, these are not the only 2 Scarm builds in existence. They're just the really... even these builds alone, they have a million permutations. Like the Magneton team, you can run Swampert, you can run, honestly, anything. Snorlax. So the Magneton, it's basically combining the ability of Magneton to let you run non-Scarm affected Pokemon, or Scarm affected Pokemon more easily with Skarmory Spikes, because they have good synergy. Just got to be aware of the shortcomings, but you bring up by not running Gengar. Of course, you're less afraid of Pursuit Tar, so that is a bonus. Anyway, so even within those 2 permutations, those are the most common ones. Another one I guess you can run is Doug, and then this one's kind of weird because Fortress is kind of a blob, but some people run it. Basically, the idea is whichever one you send out, it gets magged, and then you Doug, and then you send out the other one. Generally, Foray will get magged because Scarm is a better wall. But this has its own set of serious problems. But that's the last thing I think I really needed to mention, I think. Oh, no, there is one more. The famous Superman one. There are a lot of attempts at teams like this, but the idea is basically, like Superman, you fly above it. The standard variation is this. So we're going to plop T-Tard here and Scarm here. And now you see, 4 Spike immunes. And these two Pokemon that are not immune to, these two Pokemon that are affected by spikes are not affected by Sandstorm. So this is a really hard team to wear down passively. And you even have 3 of OU's 4 Pokemon that are not affected by nor Sandstorm nor spikes, with Zapdos only being affected by sand. So this is the classic veteran in love team Superman that's been used non-stop across the years. So yeah. That's the last classic one. Things like this. I mean, you can throw in Gengar and other things like this. I mean, the great thing about Advance is that popular teams, you can substitute things in based on how you want to use them. But yeah, that's that basically. All right, so we're gonna call it there. So this was the longest video yet. My God. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was informative for you. I hope get out there and use some Skarmory. I think I covered everything. Just, be careful with Skarm because people really go all out and not wanting to lose to it. So as long as you play heads up and are heads up with your team, then you will be fine. Skarmory will get you wins. Yeah, I think that covers most of it. Maybe for some reason I really want to mention mixed Metagross as a common thing that happens, but I think I already did. With the Titans and Pert, that kind of team. T-Tar, Meta, Swampert, Salamence, and then your Zapdos and Salamence kind of things, the things that hit, you have so many Pokemon that hit Skarmory from every angle, then those are there. I mean, I'll just show it off, but as an example of a team that would go all out, you got your Hidden Power Fire, maybe your T-Punch, you got your, Fire Blast, maybe your Focus Punch, you got your Mixed, you got your all-out offensive. You've got your, and this is a very common, powerful team. So you got your Mixed, and then you just got your thing that just scares it to death. So yeah, so for some reason I really felt like mentioning that. But yeah, this is the kind of team where it's a good example of how Skarmory is not immortal, but it's going to take a couple hits, but it's also going to get that spike, and you're going to have to make use of that to win the game. Alright, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you get out there and use some good old Skarmory. So I will catch you next time.